Hey, this is Darren from Property Prosperity. Tonight I thought I'd have a bit of a chat about people that are building and the advice I give to my clients when they're building, what they should be doing. And this pretty much comes down to something you put a little bit of effort in up front and it may come in handy for a rainy day. So that's why I describe it as a bit of an insurance policy if something goes wrong down the track. And so it seems like common sense, but just be a little bit organized and just make sure you're thinking about everything you're talking about with your client, with your builder along the way, and make sure you document everything you do along the way. So the first thing is obviously there's going to be paperwork going backwards and forwards. I don't know if you know, but basically anything you sign before the contract, obviously that should be incorporated into the contract. So the first thing to make sure is everything you're expecting is written actually down in the contract. So if a builder actually says something and you aren't really sure whether it's included or not, just make sure they include it in the contract somewhere. It should be on the plans, it should be actually on the building contract or the specification or the schedules or any of those documentation that you're going to get when you're signing the contract. Just make sure that everything you're expecting to get is actually on one of those documents there. So then if anything goes wrong down the track, then you can go back and say, hey, well, it was in our agreement from the start, so you have to honor that agreement. So next thing is if you change your mind or if the builder has any changes along the way, after you've signed the contract, any changes after you've signed the contract is called a variation, which means it should be documented. So there should be a piece of paper, even if it's just you're changing the door from a yellow door to a green door. You know, even if there's not any financial costs, you still should document it, and there should be a variation document which comes from the builder to you. You should sign off on it and send it back to the builder, and the builder should actually sign off on it as well. So it should be documented that everyone's agreed that's the change, and if there's any financial costs of that change as well. So there's not going to be any surprises down the track. So the next thing I suggest to people is just keep a track of the communications going backwards and forwards to the builder. So if the builder's promising to do certain things or you're expecting something to come from the builder, sometimes you don't even know what's going to be an important piece of communication down the track. So my advice to people is whenever they're chatting to the builder, they can either just take a note of it, or what you can do after you've had a chat to your builder, just get off the phone and just sit down and just send him an email. Just say, hey, Mr. Builder, thanks very much for your time. I really appreciated, sitting down and explaining to me the situation. I just want to clarify, is this what you actually meant by the process? And then the good thing about that is you then clarify what your expectations are, and it's documented. You'll then be able to go back if something goes wrong. You'll be able to go back through all your emails and find out if there's any issues. If there is any misunderstanding, you'll be quite clear because you've documented what your expectations are. And the good thing is if the builder doesn't reply back, hi, thanks for the like. If the builder doesn't reply back and disagree with your expectations or your understanding, then I suppose you can just take that as the builder's agreed with what you've said, because you've obviously been involved in the conversation originally on the phone. You've then documented it. You've sent that through saying, this is my understanding of our conversation. If there's any misunderstanding, let me know as soon as possible so we can take that into account. And so it's just a way of recording all the communications going backwards and forwards. So if there's any issues down the track, you can always go back through all your communications and say, hey, well, you said this is what it was going to be. I've sent an email, I've confirmed that's what was going to happen. If it was something different, then you needed to get back to me and explain that it was going to be something different. And obviously the fact they didn't, then you can take that as that's what you're expecting to get. And the good thing about that, if you're going down the track, obviously you don't really want to get to the point where people are going to court and stuff. I don't know if you know, there is a process when things do go wrong. So they have things like mediation, and you have arbitration, and you have, obviously court settlement side of things. So probably the first thing you do, I suppose, is just talk it out through the builder, see if you can try and resolve it yourself. Definitely don't want to get a lawyer involved. That would be the final last straw, because it costs everyone lots of money, and only one that's going to win out of that is the lawyers, basically. So my advice is to document your communication. Hopefully, if you've got a strong enough explanation of why you believe that was the case and you've documented it along the way, hopefully the builder will say, yep, that you're totally in the right there. I understand it was my mistake then, and hopefully they just rectify the issue and get it resolved quite quickly. So yeah, hopefully you found that interesting, and hopefully you understand why it would be an insurance policy to make sure you document all your communications backwards and forwards, because it's going to save you a heap of hassle down the track. If anything does go wrong, you can just refer back to it. 9 times out of 10, the builder's going to say, okay, I understand that was an agreement at that point in time, and they're going to honour that agreement, I'm sure. So hopefully that's all made sense. If you like what I had to say, then click on the like button. If you haven't liked what I had to say, then still click on the like button anyway, because I really appreciate it. And if you've got something you'd like me to talk about in a future episode, or just like to comment about your situation where you've had a building issue and you've maybe resolved it by documented communications, or maybe you wish you had a documented communications, then feel free to put a comment in the comment box. I'd really appreciate it. And if you know someone that's thinking about building or going through the building process, click on the share button, because hopefully they'll get some benefit out of knowing that it's really important to document all this communication backwards and forwards between the builders. So thanks for your time. I look forward to chatting to you next time. Thanks. Bye.